right? If you ask the average 19-year-old, like, hey, have you ever thought about going into global trade compliance? They'll be like, I have no idea what you're talking about, right? So I wish like somebody from this industry had said, hey, this is a really cool career, one that I think you might be, really interested in and a good fit for.
Before we get started with the show, here's a quick word from our sponsor, Global Training Center. As trade compliance professionals, you want to make sure that your procedures and documentation are completed as correctly as possible to avoid any delays and possible fines. We provide a range of trade compliance courses that will fit your needs. From in-person or web training to recorded on-demand courses, we can train one or even thousands on your team through your learning platform or on our portal. We can even customize a private session for your team. Go to globaltrainingcenter.com to find out more.
Hey, Andy. So we're back again, one of our special episodes for our birthday week. Well, I call it birthday week or anniversary week. And so this one we're calling Simply Trade Folks. And it's more of a deeper and understanding and talk about and with Simply Trade, or not Simply Trade, but individuals in trade and how they got to where they are. I mean, when we have guests on our show, Andy, we normally say, okay, let's get to the point. Let's talk about the topic. Okay, so you work at a law firm. You work here or there, and so which is good. We always put their bio on or their information on the show notes. But now we want to get to know these people that have come on our show and are in trade and everything. So I'm really excited about this one, and a special friend of ours here.
Definitely.
That will be
I think this
us.
is going to be a good show. But I will say to our listeners, folks, this is going to be one where you're going to get to hear the backstory of an individual, and hopefully everybody identifies with a story. And part of this may be a scenario that if you are a rookie in the industry, you need to be having the perspective to say, if she could do it or he could do it, I can do it. And if you are a more seasoned person like Lalo and I is probably seasoned and withered a little bit, it's being able to mentor some folks or and help raise some people up and share your knowledge. There's always this transfer of knowledge from the older generation to the younger ones. Well, that only happens in developing a relationship and taking the time to help mentor somebody and help them along. You may need to come alongside, put a hand on their shoulder and encourage them. You may need to turn around and kick them in the backside and say, you're tougher than this. Come on, get with it, and go from there. But with that, we are going to get to talk with one of our favorite folks, and she's been on the show a few times here. But Bonnie, and it's like, I know you as Buttigieg, and it's Bonnie Kersch now, right?
Bonnie Kersch, yes.
You're talking about the transportation director, just Buttigieg. Her last name used to be Buttigieg.
Buttigieg, I'm sorry.
You're actually both wrong.
Oh my gosh.
Here we go.
It's pronounced Buttigieg, but it's now Kersch. It's now Kersch. So yes.
Oh, geez.
Sorry.
Yeah, well, my elevator doesn't make it all the way up sometimes, so it's like you're going to only get part of it. There you go.
Okay, so we're wrong. That's why we have this segment, so we get to know people better.
There you go.
Well, Bonnie, you are now at Wayfair. Is that correct? Okay, and tell everybody what your position is now before we start diving into where'd you come from, woman?
Sure. So I'm the Associate Director of Global Trade Compliance at Wayfair. So I'm in charge of global trade compliance for Wayfair. That's what I do.
Excellent.
Nice.
Excellent. Now, did you grow up is it Louisiana that you grew up in?
So I live in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, and I've lived here for quite a while. I grew up in Houston, actually.
Oh, okay.
So, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, you probably
so
just
definitely
made
from the South.
A few folks from there in Houston. Larry Hanson's probably go Houston. There you go.
Larry's a good friend.
Oh,
He's a good guy.
Oh
yeah,
man,
for sure.
He's excellent. Okay, so let's talk a little bit. talk about your education first. Let's start with that, and I guess branch out. So what's your do you have a degree or whatever? I went years without one until I finished up in 2016. So
Yeah, I do have a degree. So I graduated from LSU. Go Tigers. I'll mention that they won two
excuse me,
national.
I'm
Wait, I'm sorry. Don't. Do you need some water? Um, when I graduated, they had two national championships while I was there. Just need to throw that out there. Clearly
Fun
my
fact.
doing. I have a degree in English literature with a focus in grammar and etymology. So, like I know a lot of Greek and Latin, the root meaning of words and root words and where they came from and that sort of thing. So I don't have any sort of degree that's like directly tied to global trade compliance, except that I find that the skills I gained through my English degree help me to read and interpret text, which I do a lot of in my job. So reading like the CFR and reading, customs rulings and understanding that, something as simple as a semicolon has a big effect on, a rule or a law or something like that. So, and I can write a damn good email too. So, not directly related, not like a
all right,
supply
I'm gonna
chain
have to
degree,
go
but
back
still.
and start checking her grammar here real quick.
Please don't, please don't.
What about etymology? I mean, does that help with like tariff classification, digging in or something? I guess I don't know. No,
Probably
not
not.
really.
Probably
No.
not. Yeah.
Etymology maybe might help with forced labor, I guess, like finding the origins of a product. I don't know.
Maybe.
I'm just trying.
Yeah. Probably
I'm trying
not.
to make your parents feel good that
I,
they paid for that degree. And
oh, my parents did not pay for it, so
oh,
they
they
don't
didn't.
need to.
Okay,
No, I
okay,
am still paying for it
okay.
despite having a kid in college. So no. They don't need to feel good about anything. Although actually, when I told them I was going to get an English degree, they said, "Oh, you're going to be a really good barista at Starbucks." I was like, "No. Like you can do lots with an English degree." So yeah, it has served me well. I actually also did a lot of improv theater, so improv comedy. In college, I was on LSU's improv comedy troupe. And I find that the skills that I learned through doing improv have helped me a lot too in my career. I'm a pretty good public speaker. I do it quite a bit. And I think that, everyone should take some sort of like speech, debate, public speaking, some sort of class like that, if they can or get the opportunity to do that, because it's definitely a helpful skill to have. So
Well, I will say, Bonnie, you have always been. It is having I guess an education with the English degree explains a lot. You're always such a great conversationalist, and I mean seriously, it's always been phenomenal in talking with you on different things. I mean, just different, a wide variety of topics, and so now I'm like, okay, man, how about I start sharpening my tools and intellect here because to hold a candle to you, my dear.
no, I'm not one of, well, thank you for the compliments, but no, I'm not one of those people who like judges other people's grammar or anything like that. So no, it's all good. Don't even worry
We're
about
in
it.
trouble on my grammar. I'm gonna tell you, it's like
Oh my
No,
god.
anyway.
Yeah.
no.
I like
Although
on
I
my
must say,
Spanglish too.
talking about proper grammar and LSU, it's probably a stretch.
All right. I mean, don't let some of our football coaches, be an example of our
There you
grammar
go.
skills.
That's that Cajun influence down there, right?
It's the Cajun. Yeah, that's
I
right.
love it. I love it. All right. So, did you go get your degree and you go to school and all that and you finished it up, or did you wind up like a lot of us? I wound up having several years of college and then I had to go to work because I had to pay bills and because I was on my own and whatnot. So,
Yeah.
talk about that.
So yes. So I went to college right after high school, like the traditional route. And then while I was in college, rather, I got married, had two kids, and got divorced, all while in college. So it took me 6 years to finish, to graduate because, I had two babies in the middle of that. And when I graduated from college, my kids were 1 and 3. So that was quite a handful. So I was working several jobs while in college, to try to pay the bills, support the family, and so on. So it was hard. It was hard work, but I did it. Graduated, super proud of that, and was a single mom for 10 years after that, and just worked my butt off. So yeah, I graduated from college and immediately, I was already working for a company called Kaplan Test Prep, who I actually still work for a little bit. It's been over 20 years. So I teach LSAT, ACT, SAT, GRE, GMAT, a bunch of if you're trying to go to grad school or law school, I can help you get into it. So I've done that for a really long time, and really enjoy that. Was doing that full time right when I graduated from college, but it didn't pay very well. So even though I really enjoyed it, I kept that as a part-time job and found a full-time job at a chemical company. So I was working in customer service for the chemical company, and then they got audited. So they got audited by CBP, and as happens for most of us in global trade compliance, that's how this role opened up,
You
right?
wound up
They
staying
hired
too late
somebody.
until too long after work one night or something. Like, guess
I
what?
did, and they grabbed me. Right, exactly. So they got audited by CBP and hired somebody who was knowledgeable, who was a licensed customs broker and whatnot, to come in and start a global trade compliance department. And by department, I mean they hired that guy and he hired me, and we were the department. So I was already at the company, but I interviewed for that position and moved into that position at the same company. And that's how my career in global trade compliance started.
Stepping in, did you have an idea of what that was, or just it was something new? So you wanted, all right.
Not a clue. I mean, I knew a little bit from, working in customer service for that company because I was doing a little bit of importing and exporting, but I knew very little. I remember one of the first questions I asked was, okay, so I understand you pay duty when you import something. Do you also pay it when you export something? Right. And of course, we know now that's not the case, but I didn't know anything. Right. I remember one time he asked me to create a binder because we were going to do a valuation audit. And I had never heard the word valuation. What is that? Because that's kind of unique to global trade compliance, right? That's not a term that's used kind of in any other area. So I thought he had said evaluation, like I'm going to evaluate something. So on the side of the binder, I had printed evaluation. And he was like, what's evaluation? I meant valuation. And I was so embarrassed. So I had to, redo my binder. So no, to say I knew nothing about global trade compliance, but he was a pretty good mentor, so learned quite a bit.
So you wound up obviously learning as you go through. I will say that I've seen you on all, your presentations. We've been good friends for quite a number of years and all that. Bonnie, you have a very strong work ethic and just phenomenal. And just again, as an individual, you're just phenomenal. But you've got great kids, and had the pleasure of getting to meet your kids at one of the conferences that we went to. And matter of fact, as I recall, one of the conferences was San Antonio, wasn't it?
Yeah, that was San Antonio where you met them, I believe. Yeah. And that one's coming back up. Yeah.
And we're coming back to San Antonio here next month in September. So for the ICPA Fall Conference. So that'll be good to get back down there. So anyway, all right. So I digress a little bit. So Bonnie, as you're learning and you're going through, as you were getting into this, you had to have. The one thing I'll say, not only do I see you with a strong work ethic, but you seem to also have initiative. So in other words, it must have interested you in learning something new, because a lot of people can come in, do their job, go home, and that's it. Versus you can come in and actually learn as you're going through it. And so that meant you had to dig into, learning to classify or learning how to do the paperwork or learning hence the valuation. And that was a whole new ball game there. Like, oh, well, did you do a audit on that from a transactional basis or on a, cost, I forget all the terms. Anyway, all that to say, as you're learning all that, this is like, what sparked that and what'd you do as far as learning more as you went along?
Yeah, sure. So I've always been very driven. So there are some people who are very content having the same position at their job for their career. They may work 30 years as a bank teller and they're the best bank teller they can possibly be. And they don't have any desire to ever be like the manager of the bank tellers. They just are happy being a bank teller. And that is perfectly fine. And there's a great need for that in organizations. You need those people who are just solid, come to work every day, are very good at what they do, but have no, desire to have a different position. That's not me. Right. So I don't think I would be happy being like at the same level, doing the same thing day after day. I really like that global trade changes all the time and is, depending on who's president or what's going on in the world or, who's at war with who, it changes all the time. And I like that, like having to constantly learn. And I'm driven to get to the next level in my career, whatever that level may be. So I definitely, one of the first things that I did was I took Larry Hansen's class that he was offering. I don't know if he still does it, but he did a class that was basically a broker exam prep class. Or if you weren't taking the broker exam, it was still just a good way to learn a lot about global trade compliance. So I took that class, ultimately got my broker's license. So studied my butt off to get my broker's license. And if there's anyone listening to this who wants to do that, I highly recommend doing it. But I have someone on my team who's studying for it right now. And what I told her is, look, don't expect to pass it the first time. And it's okay if you don't pass it the first time. You're going to learn so much studying for it that it's going to be valuable to me, just to have you on my team with more knowledge that you learn just in studying from it. So just don't beat yourself up because, man, that test is a beast. But I studied and studied and studied and passed it and got my broker's license. So for me, that was the best way to learn a whole lot about global trade compliance pretty quickly. So between the Larry's class and just studying for that broker's exam, because it kind of touches on every topic.
Well, it's in preparing for the broker's exam, it consumes your life for several months. I mean, it's not just a few weeks. I mean, it's months. Not only are you reading constantly and then um, trying to make your notations on how to find things, because one of the key things is as being a broker is how to do the research and the regs to find what you need that's apropos to the issue that you've got to look at. So that said, is doing that, and you're still raising these kids at the same time, and trying to have some kind of a life as things go on. So I would imagine that.
Does anyone really have a life when they have little kids? I don't know, but yeah, for me it was really important, and it still is. I thrive on routine. So if I have a routine, then I'm good to go. Like, I wake up, I brush my teeth, I eat breakfast, usually the same thing, a couple of scrambled eggs, a piece of toast, a piece of fruit, right? So I really thrive on routine. I eat lunch at about the same time every day. At the end of the day, I also work from home. So I make sure, and I have for a very long time, like way before COVID. So I make sure that at a certain time of day, I shut my computer down and I walk out of the room where I work all day and I start family time, because it's really easy to get consumed in like, oh my gosh, I have so much work to do. At the end of the day, and this is what I tell my team too, like we sell furniture on the internet at Wayfair. Like it's not, let's keep it in perspective. While this is really important work that we're doing, we sell furniture on the internet. We're not here saving lives. We're not, nothing like that. So it's important to me to have that, work-life balance and to learn when to shut the computer down and walk away. But yeah, for me, like I said, really routine. So like setting aside time in my day when I was studying for the broker's exam and saying like, okay, these 2 to 3 hours or however much time I have that day, that is set aside for studying. I'm not doing anything else. I'm not reading emails. I'm not, those. So it's about really sticking to that schedule and being diligent.
Well, one of the things I will say in preparing is that very thing is there's a lot of people that do these, 1 week crash courses, and then you're really busting the gut and you're spending, just all your wake time, studying for it to try and cram for it, or was probably more effective is like what you're saying. You're blocking out 2 or 3 hours a day. And you can do that 5 days a week. There, if you do it 2 hours a day, that's 10 hours in a week, or 3 hours, that's 15 hours, and you still have your weekend. I mean, that's quite a bit of study time. But if you're doing that consistently over the weeks, then it's not like this mad crash course deal. And so as you're looking at it, because the other thing is that I guess reading all of the regs, excuse me, and the preparing for all that, and practicing your classification. But then you have to start looking at the questions. One of the things that I'll say as far as this, and I'm going to ask this question: do you think in looking at evaluating the questions on how to answer them on a broker's exam, how's that translate into real life? So the point being is, when you're looking at those questions, those practice tests and all that, you see the questions, and there's a lot of times there's a lot of irrelevant information that's in this question, and you've got to go through and delineate what's relevant to, what's the question being asked, what's relevant to as far as the facts, and the other, you've got to block that out or it'll take you down a rabbit hole kind of thing. So in preparing for all that, do you think preparing for that broker's exam and doing that exercise on evaluating those questions applies to what you're dealing with in real life?
Oh, for sure. I mean, how many times do we get emails from people, whether it's our broker saying, hey, I need information on XYZ, or it's from someone internal saying, hey, I've got this thing I want to ship to India or China. And by the way, it's a laptop and it's encrypted. But that's okay, right? You don't need anything. I can just like put it in a box and send it. And you have to be like, wait a minute, you said encrypted. That's the magic word. So you have to know, like, you said the combination of encrypted and China. So let's dig a bit more into this. Like, do we need an export license for this? That's even if you're lucky enough to have them tell you ahead of time before it's already, sitting at the door in China. But yeah, no, I absolutely think those skills are relevant. And, I still have my CFRs that I marked up for my broker's exam, and I use them all the time. Like if I have a, question, I can't quite remember today, I used it because I was trying to look into some detail about whether warranties are dutiable. And I knew that they were, but what types of warranties are dutiable is what I was looking into. So I was able to pull out my CFR, go to my little tab that said valuation, and then dig in further, So yeah, the skills that you learn just studying for that exam definitely translate into, real life, like what you're going to be doing on the job. So I think that's super helpful. So I think the top thing I would recommend to anyone kind of starting out in this career is to try to get your broker's license. At least study for it. I think not only will it open up a lot of career doors for you. I know that, the last couple of jobs I've had, like they wouldn't have even hired me if I didn't have a license. So, I think it opens up a lot of career doors for you and just teaches you so much.
Well, and even like you said, there's in preparing for it, that's where, getting a working knowledge of the regulations is one of the results of that, whether you pass or fail. You should be, you're going in and you will gain a working knowledge of the regs. Secondarily to that, there's a large portion of that exam that's tied to classification, which is one of those where I'm not a classifier. I mean, I wound up just 45 days before the exam. I thought, oh, I'll see if I can study for it. Well, I was cramming like crazy, right? And you have to, if you're going to take the exam, you have to at least register 30 days before the exam. So I decided to do that and whatnot. And I scored a 73. So I didn't, 75 is passed.
Dang,
And
that's
it was the
good.
first thing.
So close,
Well,
but
I
that's really
should
good.
have
Yeah.
protested a couple or whatever. And there was at least one question I know that was protestable, if you will. But I thought, I went through all this. I'll just take it again. Well, in my role, I was my objective was to get a working knowledge of the regs, and going through that process, I was able to do that. And I have been in situations, I literally have debated and or been in heavy discussions with customs attorneys, with customs themselves and whatnot, which was fun on the regulations and policies and all. The classification, that wasn't my thing. And that's what ate me. Yeah, that ate my lunch. So
Yeah. So I actually enjoy classifying, especially chemicals, which nobody
chemical,
else
oh my
seems to want to
gosh.
touch. So
I knew you were weird. I'm telling you.
you didn't know I was that weird, huh?
Chemicals are
Yeah,
probably the
no,
most
I love it.
complex.
Just there, that and textiles, right? But yeah, chemicals are pretty tough. But I enjoy it. I've done a lot of trainings for other people on classifying chemicals and so on. So I enjoy it, looking at a chemical structure and being able to tell you things about it. Like, I guess, you have to be kind of super nerdy to enjoy it, but that's okay. I'll take on
Oh, I
that
love it.
title.
I love
So.
it.
So getting to know you a little bit differently, Bonnie, and like kind of shifting gears and everything, just so that people can know Bonnie. I've known you for a bunch of years. You're always so happy. You're always so cheerful and everything. Like what's your like ideal Sunday, or like what is Bonnie? You know what I mean? Like, we know you as this person who's always talking about trade. We see you at the conferences and everything, but
What makes you
what
tick?
keeps you that way, I guess? Yeah.
What? Oh, that's a different question, Andy.
Yeah.
Is there a therapist in the room? I don't know. We might need that to know that. Okay, let's see. I'm on a bowling league. Both my dad and my grandmother are in the Bowling Hall of Fame. My dad was a professional bowler. After he retired from Exxon, he went on the Senior All Stars tour. Bowling skills are not genetic. I average like I have like a 130 average. So like, I'm not a stellar bowler, but you know what? I have a really good time.
It's
So
100
that
more
gets me
than
out of
I
the house.
average. So
Yeah. So I bowl. Let's see what else. I coach a swim team. I'm really into swimming. I was a competitive swimmer myself, and I have I coach a swim team with about 50 something kids on it. Their ages 5 to 18. And I really enjoy that. It's a lot of fun, and gets me a little bit of exercise too.
I was a competitive swimmer
What
too
else?
as a kid. Yeah.
Oh, were you? What was your stroke? What was your
Of
best
course,
stroke?
the breaststroke I hated. I would do it. I love the butterfly. Yeah,
Really?
I love the butterfly, but I just didn't have the stamina. But I was too young. Yeah, I mean that really, butterfly for it
Butterfly's
is,
hard.
and all that. And of course the was it freestyle? Yeah, and freestyle that's everybody's. I mean that's fine. My thing was the backstroke wasn't bad. And I would go to town on it and whatnot, but I always misjudged doing the flip.
Where the
And
wall
man,
was. Oh,
there's
yeah.
many times I either crashed my head against the wall, and that would screw you up, or I'd do the flip and my feet would hit the edge, and that messes you up too. So no.
Well, Andy, I'm going to challenge you at the next conference. We're going to race in the pool.
Oh my goodness.
The loser has to
There
buy
you
the other
go.
one a
There you
drink.
go. That sounds good. Sounds good.
There you go. That's our challenge. All right. All
Now
right. You heard it here
I'll
on the
qualify
podcast.
right now. I'm not doing butterfly at this age.
You don't even have to wear a Speedo.
Yeah,
You
oh,
don't
no.
have to wear the
Everybody
Speedo.
go, oh no, put
Regular
it on.
swim
No,
trunks
no.
are fine.
if the pool isn't big enough, y'all can just jump into the river.
Oh, there we go.
The
There
river
we go.
walk. That's where we'll
We'll race
down the river
boats.
Yeah.
Exactly. I think we could beat them. They're pretty slow. But yeah, so let's see. Bowling, swim team. I mean, general kid stuff. I'm on the board of our like homeowners association. Just stuff.
Just fun stuff. That's cool. So we used to ask this a lot. Did we ask you this before? If you can talk to your um, 20, 18, 19, 20-year-old person, what would you tell yourself now?
Oh my gosh. No, you haven't asked me that. Oh man. So I got married at 19. So I would probably say maybe don't do that. maybe maybe that's too young and hold off a little bit. Let's see, what would I tell? I think honestly, I would like most people don't know what global trade compliance is as a career, right? If you ask the average 19-year-old, like, hey, have you ever thought about going into global trade compliance? They'll be like, I have no idea what you're talking about, right? So I wish like somebody from this industry had said, "Hey, this is a really cool career, one that I think you might be, really interested in and a good fit for," just so that I would have known about it sooner and could maybe have. I mean, not, my English degree was really helpful, right? But like maybe I could have gotten a different degree that would have better prepared me for it. But yeah, I don't know. And don't marry that guy. It probably wasn't for me. But don't get married at 19. It typically isn't a good idea.
What if you reverse it? What will your 19-year-old tell you right now at your age? Like,
Oh boy.
holy smokes, you got this far, or I mean, I don't know.
Yeah,
Like, were
probably.
you
Like,
confident? Were you confident back then that you were going to be like, man, you are. I mean, I don't know if anybody caught this. You told us your title, but you are like it. You are who manages the team at Wayfair to make sure those desks, those beds, those drawers, everything gets into the United States so that we can get them in our homes. I mean, so you're the big cheese there. So that's what I mean. I mean, like, I don't know. I mean, when I was 18, 19, I'd be like, dude, really? You own a house? Dude, that's a
yeah.
cool car. You know what I mean? That's what I would be like. Really?
Yeah.
Do you race
No,
it or?
I'm I will tell you, I do not drive a cool car. I drive a Buick Enclave, so it's basically a minivan, right? So I
You're a
still have
mom,
like a
so
mom
you
car. But
yeah.
yeah, but no, I am I am proud of myself, if that's okay to say, like, for where I'm at. I'm still pretty young. I'm only 38. So to have, be where I'm at in my career, and I do own a home, and now that I have two driving children, own way more cars than I'd like to own. But yeah, so I am, proud of where I am, and I think I've come a long way. But I will say, like, nothing has been like handed to me in life. I'm not one of those people that like mommy and daddy like gave me everything I have. That's great if you can have that, but that wasn't me. Like I have worked my tail off like for everything that I have. And I think honestly, like as Andy, as you were kind of saying earlier, like hard work is really the key, to get to where you want to be. Like, it doesn't matter how smart you are. I don't even think you need a college degree to succeed in this industry. I definitely will hire people all day long without a college degree, so I'm not saying that. I'm saying it doesn't matter how smart you are. I think it matters, like, are you willing to put in the work? Are you willing to ask the questions? If you don't understand something, ask. There are lots and lots of wonderful people who love being mentors in this industry, who are happy to lead you, along the path to where you need to be.
Or what would you suggest somebody do if they are wanting to be mentored and they're trying to do something and all that? Do you have any suggestions on how to approach people or where to find a mentor from your perspective?
Let me tell you where to find a mentor. I would say any sort of large organization like an ICPA and NCBFAA, right? Go to those conferences and find the people who are answering all the questions. Find the people who clearly like know everybody and are, talking to everybody, and go talk to them. I walk up to random people I don't know at these conferences all the time. I mean, all the time, and just say, "Hi, I'm Bonnie. Who are you? What do you do? Tell me more about yourself." I'm not shy and not afraid to do that. But I remember this guy, Andy, when I met Andy the first time, one of our first conversations, I was ticked off and fussing at the FedEx people. And I was saying, I don't understand why you guys keep clearing my shipments. I have told you over and over and over that we have a broker and we want you to send them to our broker. We want to do the broker select option. So we just want FedEx to move the goods, but we want you to let our broker clear the goods. And I can't figure out for the life of me why I can't make that happen. And Andy was standing there, and I don't even think you worked for FedEx anymore at the time, but you said, look, I can help you. I know, like, I got this. And so we talked through it a little bit, and he was like, we've got this thing called the broker select option. You need to make sure that that's checked off when you're creating the shipment with FedEx. You need to make sure they have it at that time, like not just a blanket statement, but like every time you submit a shipment, you need to do that. And I said, okay, so I need to make sure my purchasing folks or whoever's, initiating the shipment knows to do that. And he was like, exactly. Like, you need to feed it up to them. They need to tell FedEx. And I said, thanks, Andy. And that was the first conversation Andy and I ever had. And ever since, do you remember that, Andy?
I have had people approach me because they would have an issue. And I'm telling you, and I've used this term, I'm almost abusing it right now. I mean, they were ready to part my hair with a hatchet. And they were like so frustrated. And so I was like, okay, let's walk through it and whatnot. And would go from there. And it's like, when somebody's upset, if they're yelling, screaming, hollering, whatever, if they're frustrated, whatever, you got to let somebody vent. And so that was one of the things we do. And then the second thing is then we're at a point, it's like, okay, let's get down to what's the issue. And then say, well, here's what's happening. Here's the symptom. And then it's like, then you start going in to say, well, let's see if we can identify the root cause and all that. But, again, yeah, I talked through that and we've had good conversations. You have called me on several things, just one off, I'm going through this, I got this issue. I've had a situation where your career situation was, you called me about some career advice a few times and all that. And I was glad, to offer what I could. So, I mean, I'm proud of you. I will say that. So.
Oh, well, thank you. Yeah, I mean, both of you honestly have really been mentors to me. And, you're talking about, how do you find a mentor? I think you just pick up the phone. You send an email, it's that easy. There are so many people who are willing to help. There are very, very few people who will ignore you and not help you. I mean, I can't even think of anyone.
We didn't have this years gone by, but I mean, we definitely have it now. And I would say with ICPA, that's a good organization. If you are a rookie in the industry, you need to really give serious thought to becoming a member. But the other thing about, your first year's free and all that. But here's something about ICPA. You could literally, as a member, go in there and say, I'm trying to learn. I need, I'd like a mentor or several mentors and whatever. Is there anybody out there that it would be in this industry that, or just I'd like a mentor to help me with some things. Yeah, and you'll get flooded. There is of people offering to help, and that's one of those things. You can have more than one mentor, so that would be one of those things. What about?
Oh, absolutely. I've definitely talked to both of you about career advice for sure. So I appreciate both of your, advice over the years.
That's good advice too, Bonnie, because I see younger generation, like the kids that are graduating right now, and a lot of them are, I guess, because of COVID, maybe, I don't know. They're very reluctant to like reach out or like might feel like it's strange or weird to just talk to someone above you or something. I mean, I know others that are very like open and oh heck yeah, I'm gonna go talk to them and everything. You know what I mean? So I'm not saying all of them are that way, but you do see that, and it's good that you're saying that because that's who is going to need the mentoring, or those younger ones, that are coming up. And of course, anybody that does a career change, like they're coming from the military, right? They're older, but those they'll talk to you. I mean, they've already been through a career, and I don't think they have a problem. It's more the younger ones. I'm glad that you're saying that, because I do see that a lot in younger kids. Is like, what? You're gonna send an email, a cold email? No way. That does you, or you're just gonna call? You say it right now. Just pick up the phone and call. Heck no, that's not gonna happen with a lot of Gen Xers, or Gen Zers. Gen Zers. I'm sorry.
I'll say this, that I'm going to be curious about this. I don't see a big issue regarding gender in the compliance arena. Matter of fact, I probably see it's pretty even, women and men, both in high level positions and in the industry as a whole. But let me just ask the question: have you seen any issues as far as women in trade here, from your perspective?
No. No, I haven't. I think that you're right. And even some of your like bigger named, law firms and things like that are women owned and women run and have, I mean, you were just talking about having Jennifer Horvath from Bromiller on, I think you said yesterday. So, I mean, she's a woman working for a woman owned, company. So no, I think, and even ICPA is woman run, right? So, I don't see being a woman as an issue. I would like to see more people of color in trade. I don't think that we have very many. It's largely, Caucasian, white people dominated, right? So I'd love to see more like African American, or other people of color in trade, because I don't feel like they're well represented.
But I don't see very many blacks. There's some Asians, I guess. As again, we're talking generalities, but in that, part of that may come into what interests people too. This is one of those a niche.
But I'll tell you, talking about my story, the job that I have now and the last job, I directly got because of people I met at ICPA. The job that I have today was, Pete Minto called me up, and he was at Wayfair, and he said, hey, I think you'd be a really good fit for this position. You should come apply. So I met him through ICPA. My last job at Bromiller, I knew them, very well from ICPA, and Brad Menard was like, come work for us. So, I'm just very grateful to the connections that I've made. But that goes back to, you got to open your mouth, right? You got to speak to people. It's one thing to just go to the sessions and learn what you can and then go back to your room afterwards. But you've got to, in between the sessions, when you have those, 10, 15 minutes in between, you got to shake someone's hand. You got to say, hello, who are you? Like, let's grab a drink later. Or, if you're not a drinker, let's, go for a walk, or, whatever the case may be. But you've got to network. Networking in this industry is absolutely super important. So in whatever way you're comfortable with that, even if it's just, if you're not comfortable speaking to people one-on-one, like go on LinkedIn, right? Find LinkedIn connections and send them little LinkedIn messages or whatever you're comfortable with, but you have to network. I mean, that's just key.
It's vital, not only in this, from a compliance and logistics and supply chain and all that. It's vital in any industry. So the point being, you've got to step outside your comfort zone. If you're not one that you're more introverted or whatever, those kinds of things. But you've got to, develop relationships and up the chain and down the chain. So,
Right. And if we were going to have, I was going to say, if we were going to have a theme for our first anniversary, or first year of episodes, networking is probably on top of the list. I mean, almost everybody that we've interviewed has always thrown in a pitch for networking. It's just, you just have to do it, and I totally agree. And by the way, you did teach for us because of ICPA.
And, for me, I think the most important thing about networking and all of that is, just what you said, Andy, to form, connections up and down the chain. But to me, it is very important to me that I treat the CEO and the janitor exactly the same. Right. So like the waiter at the restaurant and the guy who owns the restaurant doesn't make a hill of beans difference to me. Right. They're exactly the same person. They deserve the same amount of respect. And, that's super important. So I hope that, that's something that, when people think of me or around me, they realize that, I treat everybody with kindness. I don't care who you are. I don't care what your background is. I don't care, anything about you, right? I'm going to treat you with kindness. So to me, that is very, very, very important. And, I hope that everyone, kind of thinks about that.
there are things that when people talk, they start saying, there's two things that you never want to talk about: religion and politics. And it's like, you know what? Even if you are on opposing positions on certain things, you got to agree to disagree. You got to talk to people and figure out some things. And it's like, maybe later on I can tell you where you're wrong, but right now I just need to understand you. I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
Absolutely. Well, and no, absolutely. And Andy, being married to a woman, right? As, and living in the deep South, that comes up a lot, right? People don't necessarily agree, with my lifestyle, but at the end of the day, I don't really care because, like I said, like I am who I am. And, there are so many things, so many ways that I would describe myself before it would ever come out of my mouth that I'm married to a woman. You know what I mean? Like I would say that I'm kind, I'm a good mother, I'm hardworking, and that may not even come up. So I don't feel like that kind of thing has to define me. So again, that goes back to like, I don't care who you are. I don't care what you do in your spare time. You're a good person to me and, love you all the same. So
Relationships are built and take time to develop, if you will. So there you go. Listen, folks, we're going to need to wrap this one up. And I will say that we're going to have Bonnie back and talk about how to manage or how to set up and manage, I guess, a compliance department, which you've got a lot of good experience with that. But for our listeners, giving a little bit of here for Bonnie. Bonnie is one of those sweet. I'm telling you, she's smart as all get out, and just a sweetheart of a person. And love getting to see it. You give good hugs at those conferences too, so appreciate that.
All right. I always refer to her as the Belle of ICPA.
Folks, we would love for you to again thank you for your listenership. Like our show, share our show. You have been fantastic. This has been something where we are expanding into a few different types of formats here. This one is our Simply Trade folks, and we got to learn a little bit more about Bonnie. And we are planning on some more folks. If there's anybody in particular you'd like for us to interview, let us know. Make comments. Reach out to us on LinkedIn. We just talked about that. Seriously, myself, Bonnie, Lalo, reach out to us, connect with us, whatnot, and go from there. But thank you so much for listening to our show, supporting our show. And you're going to hear some new sponsors coming on. You're going to hear some new topics and whatnot, all because we're listening to you and people are supporting what we're doing. So, Bonnie, thank you so much. Appreciate it. Lalo and I both just love you to death. You're just a great person.
Well, thank you so much. And happy anniversary, guys. And great job on the podcast. It's fantastic. So keep it going. Keep it going.
Awesome. Well, we'll see you next week in San Antonio, and we look forward to having you back.
All right. Sounds good. Look forward to dancing with you, Andy.
Yeah.
All right. And swimming. We're going to race.
Oh yeah. That's right. I'll be holding the timer. Thank you very much for joining us. Simply Trade is brought to you by the generous contributions of Global Training Center. You can follow the show and GTC on LinkedIn or Twitter and other social networks. Make sure you check out the show notes in the description for a full rundown of today's show with all the important links. Also, make sure that you share this with a friend and subscribe on your favorite streaming platform. We really like hearing from you. If you enjoyed the show, make sure to rate and review wherever you listen to this podcast. If you or someone you know would like to be a guest in the show or would like to sponsor Simply Trade or suggest any topic you would like for us to discuss, please contact us via email at simplytrade@globaltrainingcenter.com, or you can DM us on Twitter at simplytradepod. Thank you again for the privilege of your time. Happy trading. Simply Trade is not a law firm or an advisor. The topics and discussions conducted by Simply Trade hosts and guests should not be considered and is not intended to substitute legal advice. You should seek appropriate counsel for your own situations. These conversations and information are directed towards listeners in the United States for informational, educational, and entertainment purposes only and should not be substituted for legal advice. No listener or viewer of this podcast should act or refrain from acting on the basis of information on this podcast without first seeking legal advice from counsel. Information on this podcast may not be up to date depending on the time of publishing and the time of viewership. The content of this posting is provided as is. No representations are made that the content is error-free. The views expressed in or through this podcast are those of the individual speakers, not those of their respective employers or Global Training Center as a whole. All liability with respect to actions taken or not taken based on the contents of this podcast are hereby expressly disclaimed.